A chemist by both education and trade, Dmitri Mendeleev helped to transform the world of science with his way of organizing the elements. Mendeleev was born in Russia, where he spent much of his scientific career teaching and studying chemistry. Dmitri Mendeleev's story begins in Tobolsk, Russia. In 1834, the Mendeleev family welcomed Dmitri, youngest of 17 children, to the world. The Mendeleevs were a relatively well-off family who valued education. When Dmitri's father passed away in 1847, his mother took it upon herself to ensure that Dmitri went to university, taking him over 1,300 miles to St. Petersburg to enroll. Legend has it that Mrs. Mendeleev made the journey with Dmitri on horseback, then died shortly after he was accepted to the Institute of Pedagogy in St. Petersburg. The bright young Dmitri Mendeleev finished his studies and then began working at the university in chemistry. His studies took him to Paris and Heidelberg, but eventually he returned to St. Petersburg, where he began tinkering with the organization of the elements. In 1869, Mendeleev unveiled his periodic table, quickly gaining recognition for his way of arranging elements according to likeness in weight and chemical reactivity. In the years after developing his version of the periodic table, Mendeleev spent his time teaching chemistry and researching the thermal expansion of liquids and the nature of petroleum. In 1893, 3 years after retiring from teaching, he became the director for the Bureau of Weights and Measures in St. Petersburg. Many sources report that during the later years of his life, Mendeleev became more and more eccentric, refusing to believe in the existence of the electron or radiation. In 1907, Mendeleev passed away. Mendeleev is often mistakenly called the inventor or the creator of the periodic table. While Mendeleev is perhaps the most important contributor to the development of the periodic table, he did not create it from scratch. Instead, Mendeleev improved upon the existing form of the periodic table in a novel way, turning an idea into a functioning, ingenious tool for categorizing elements. Years of working in chemistry labs helped Mendeleev become familiar with all of the 62 elements known at the time. He knew the properties of each element, from chemical reactivity to physical characteristics. Using this information and alleged inspiration from the card game Solitaire, Mendeleev began grouping elements into rows, known as periods, and columns, known as groups. He arranged elements in rows by increasing atomic weight, then linked those rows into columns based on similar properties. While constructing his version of the periodic table, Mendeleev noticed that some spaces were better left empty because there was no known element that had the necessary characteristics. Mendeleev hypothesized that these empty spaces were for elements that had not been discovered yet. So certain that he was right, Mendeleev went ahead and predicted the atomic weights and properties for these undiscovered elements. He even predicted the properties of germanium based on what he knew about the elements that lay above it in the periodic table. He called it eka-silicon, using the Sanskrit word eka, which means beyond, to suggest that it had properties similar to silicon and that it would be placed in the row below silicon. Dmitri Mendeleev was a Russian chemist who lived from 1834 to 1907. He is considered to be the most important contributor to the development of the periodic table. His version of the periodic table organized elements into rows according to their atomic mass, and into columns based on chemical and physical properties. Using his table, Mendeleev was able to predict characteristics of undiscovered elements.